Well, welcome everyone to BrainMap. Thank you very much for coming, and for people who are on Zoom. I just want to say, as you know, we are very grateful that the BrainMap is supported by a P41 funded Center for Mesoscale Imaging housed at Martinos. So I'll hand it over to our own Dr. Padma Sundaram to just give us, to introduce our two speakers today. So here you go. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
It's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Xin Yu and Dr. Chunqi Qian. Dr. Yu is going to present first, and then Dr. Chen will follow after him. Dr. Yu studied neuroscience and biophysics at NYU, and after getting his PhD, he moved to Bethesda, working at NINDS. He's combined memory and bold fMRI in electrophysiological recordings to study system to synaptic brain plasticity. Using the high field 11.7T scanner, he's made a significant effort to push the spatiotemporal limit of fMRI so as to better understand neurovascular coupling in fMRI. In 2014, he moved to Germany, where he built the Translational Neuroimaging and Neural Control Research Group at MPI for Biological Cybernetics. The group specialized in developing advanced fMRI methods under high field, 14 Tesla for animals, 5.4 Tesla for humans, implementing optogenetics and fiber optic mediated calcium recording methods to build up multimodal fMRI platforms to study different brain states. His group also focuses on investigating the neurovascular dynamic changes underlying coma induction and re-emergence in rodent models. In 2018, Dr. Yu moved to the Martinos Center, where he's continued to develop these multimodal fMRI methods for both basic and translational studies. So thanks you, Xin.
All right, thanks. And I just started, right? So, we also have a Chunqi later. I try to talk about my work, maybe roughly 20-25 minutes, and I will introduce Dr. Qian, later. All right, let me start it. So, for many of you, right, maybe, I thought maybe I should introduce myself a little bit in terms of my journey, using the ultra high field and study the rodent brain. So, as what you can see here is, during my PhD, I was working on the 7 Tesla scan at NYU, and afterwards, I was very lucky to join the Alan Quest's group, working on the 11 7 Tesla there. Also, roughly 7 years, 777, then went to Germany, and also even boosted using the 14 Tesla there at Max Planck for another 7 years. Pretty much after 21 years, I came back to the United States, and very lucky to join Martinos, and since actually full time in 2021, and I have a 2 years transitional times. So since here, right? So as many of you know, we upgraded with 14 Tesla. It used to be 15 Tesla. Jared Ackerman, installed it almost 15, 16 years ago. And, it's really a great opportunity for me to really introduce more, provide updates of what we are doing here. And hopefully, right, even can provide a bit burst of, applications, right, from even inside and outside pool of the users, in the both networks. Okay. So to really talk about the talk, I was thinking about it. I really want to start it by a very long citations from one of my very close collaborators, Nicholas Oxidis. And this is actually one paragraph he wrote it for our paper. I'm not going to reread it, but I think the major idea is, both fMRI, not just both fMRI, right? CBV, CBF, right? So which has been many, many years, especially Martinos, right? They're both, we are really, this is a real place of the birthplace of the fMRI stuff, come on here. But, even after such a long time, right, there's still so many unknown issues, right? Or confounding issues, right? Inhibition, excitation, how it's relevant to positive, negative both, right? Metabolic, hemodynamic features, right? So it's always really combined with each other, right? To really decipher the value of both or the value of the fMRI remains a very challenging. So I simplified this kind of very long paragraph. It's pretty much, in the past over 30 years, right? Of course, we know a lot of fMRI, but we also don't know a lot about fMRI. I hope this is really a way for us to still, have to promote the new generation of the scientists, especially neuroimaging scientists, to get involved, to really study this. But not just working on human studies. I think the rodents, the animal studies is very, very important. So today, I'm trying to provide you a little bit of this overview, and in a technical perspective, right? So from the part of my talk, I'm going to focusing on really provide you a little bit different perspectives of the vascular origin of the fMRI. In this part, I'm mainly focusing on the so-called single vessel fMRI method we developed and provide some new studies, we use, based on the phase contrast imaging, and also, and really updated to you go beyond fMRI, right? We can even trying to map this very, very small paravascular space in the rodent brains. And meanwhile, right, not just animals has the brain, right? Rodent brain, unfortunately, right, to stabilize the brain is very difficult, other the animals. So, but we are making effort to do the high resolution functional MRI with a weak mouse. So then the next part I'm going to introduce later, which is very honored to invite Dr. Chunqi Qian, my long-term collaborations, since 2007, right? So to talk about some very exciting tool developed, to start with simultaneous fMRI and EEG. Okay, let me start it. Single vessel fMRI. So, all right. So, so in the past, at least 12 years, right, maybe longer, we are developing multiple methods, right? So some of them, maybe many of you heard about it, a few years ago, there are Diana methods, right, which is pretty much based on the early method developed by Anna Pesky's lab. Also, we use it called reshuffle KT space, right? So then we can get an ultra high space resolution, 100 micron, and also time resolution, like 10 hertz. Diana used like 5 milliseconds, right? It's the same ideas, right? Just depends on how you set the TR. So, but maybe some of the movies, what you see, what you showed here is, right? I'm not sure if they can replay it here, right? Oh, great, right? So, when the resolution is high enough, right? In this movie, right? Sorry.
Maybe you can go to the previous slide and come back.
Yeah, I see. And so what you're really seeing here is, right, there is going to show this kind of brighter, you see reddish dots or bluish dots there, right? So what they're actually, when the resolution is high enough, right? So it's the reddish dots is very much overlapping with the dark areas, which is venules. And the bluish dots is really overlapping with the white areas, which is arterioles. So basically, so fMRI, I'm talking about all the fMRI, not just in animals. When the resolution is high enough, what are we going to see? We are going to see hemodynamic responses, and where they are from vessels. So fMRI is detecting vascular responses. So basically, consider if you're pushing resolution high enough, we are going to look at it, the vascular dynamics, but directly. Okay, so this is just some ideas we provided, but besides that, right? We can also do the resting state fMRI, right? Just based on this, single vessel. I'm sorry, right? Schemes. I just want to show you. This is, you see that? The seed base. Whenever the cursor is, that's where the seed is. You can see how the correlation maps looks like. When the cursor is on the darker dots, which is venue, all the darker dots is correlated. When the cursor is on the arterioles, this is CDV, right? All the other, arterioles, this movie should work. I should organize this size better, but you see that? Right, all the other ones is correlated. Okay, I hope you guys think that, in my side, I can see it. So the point here is, when the resolution high enough, right, is the so-called connectivities will also be presented in a vascular network perspectives. So not only that, right, if you only look at the cortical surface of cortical areas, right, optical imaging can definitely bring I don't want to call it better job, but definitely high resolution jobs. But we can go deeper, right? Not just in mouse brain, we can go deeper in the animal, in the rodent, large animal brains, even the human brain. I'm going to show some data and the animal story on the call. But here I'm showing you a rat hippocampus. Okay, so in a certain way, you see there's a beautiful penetrating, arterial venules through the hippocampal structure. If you're not familiar with the anatomy of the rodents, right? Just bear with me. This is the hippocampal areas. And similarly, if you do the optogenetic activation there, you see you work with both, or you work with CBV signals there, right? Which is also well located in the penetrating activities of values. It can be detected directly by the fMRI method, all right? So that also gives a different perspectives to understand how the vessel dynamics are with fMRI. So now I showed you the bold, I showed you CBV. What is missing? CBF. Right? So today, right, at one of the studies, we kind of published, by the significant effort from one of the faculties here, Young, right? So he really pushed, these directions by implementing so-called phase contrast imaging. Many of you must know how phase contrast imaging is working, right? So now we combine the exact same schemes, right? And so this is like maybe 10 minutes, 50 micron infrared resolution. So from the grayscale color images, right, you can see there are the brighter and the darker dots, which is actually grayscale coded as velocity, right, of this EEG voxels. And this is obviously can be identified as these are arterial values. And as you know, rodent brain, right, the arterial and the values, their flow is have a different position, right? Arterial flow in, values flow out. So that video vectorizes, either positive or negative values from the estimated velocity based on the phase map. Okay, but what is really exciting is not only we can see this single vessel velocity maps, we are able to identify the velocity changes evoked by the neural activities. Right? So this is the functional maps. Exactly same orientations. You see all these darker, the brighter dots as a bold signal, or bluish dots as a CBV signals. And now we're able to see the velocity functional changes from the image arteries and values. And we can see both because when there's actually the velocity is changing in either arterials or values. Okay, so that's a way, really give us, possibilities to cover CBV, CBF, or this and CBF and CBF and velocity, right? This is just a time course to give the idea. The value voxels, both signals, arterial voxels, CBV signal changes. This is when we see CBV related. Okay, that's why it's a signal dropped. Okay, CBV is value, volume is increased. Okay, so now if you see the velocity changes from the values, it's vectorized, right? So if it's going up, it's positive. It's going down as arterials, you have more negative values that indicate the increase of the velocities. So this is kind of very nice, right? To really demonstrated, how the high resolution fMRI is a high field, right? When the resolution is high enough, we are able to really decipher the vessel-specific hemodynamic responses. Okay, so one way we can go that take advantage of this like this. So now we are really bridging the scales with optical imaging side, right? Compared with the conventional fMRI, where we're talking 1 millimeter, a few hundred micrometer, you cannot see this. So this is a joint effort, between my group and also from, Dr. Sakti Sala's group here, right? Optics group, right? So, Alice now, she's also recently promoted as doctor, and David Miller become assistant professor, right? At Oklahoma University. So now you can see that, right? So we are same animals, right? We are achieving this is a flow velocity, or this is a arterial value maps, right? With 40 micron infrared resolution, the 20 micron thickness is MG multiplied echoing image. In exactly same areas, we can see from this typical CCD cameras to see the vessels there, right? And of course, we can achieve a much higher either two-photon imaging, right? This is a 3D reconstructed in-depth two-photon imaging side. You can see the typical structure there, and which can be achieved, registered with the first slice of the phase map, but they can be multiple slices in the deeper brains. They can even register to the different depths of the penetrating vessels. And one interesting part is we can apply another method called OCT, right? So this is particularly measure the velocities from the arterial values, in a single micron resolution there, which can easily match with what we can achieve with MR, you can pretty much see the one-to-one match, measurements. And from these values and these arterioles, you can also see their velocity, right? So this is based on Doppler based OCT, right? So then, we are able to really measure, the two different modality based velocity changes there, right? So the advantage here is, so now we have MR, we have the photon imaging data, we know the exact size of the vessels. That will provide, I will say, this real opportunities to modeling, how the fMRI responses will be, right? So now we have to remember we have CB, we have bold, we have the velocities. How do we bold? Really back up by the fundamental photon images, not talking about this Q2 measurements, So this just opened a lot of opportunities for us. And right recently, we want to establish this awake animals, and hopefully we can achieve more advanced information there. Okay, so let me kind of change gear a little bit, right? To really go beyond the vessel boxes, right? So this is really purely motivated by Alice. She basically joined my lab almost 2 years ago and really bring her own ideas, just take advantage of our technologies, which I love. And she really interested is not about the hemodynamic responses, but rather than the so-called lymphatic systems, right? Many of you must be very familiar with so-called how in the Alzheimer's brain, right, is a pyrovascular clearance could deal with a beta accumulations or even clearance. But how can we really start this, right, with MR, right? And especially mouse brains, which is so small. So let me give a little bit overview, right? So one thing here, right, many of you must know the Biomedical has been a lot of fundamental citation and establishment about it. So just last year, right, there's some new studies now, but I think this is kind of very nice. They are showing that it's activating one part of the brain, right? And they are just have a dye injected and really measured how, crossing this MCA, right, middle cerebral arteries, how the spreading of the dye, through this pyrovascular space, right, based on what they claim. And if the center part is the diameter of the dye, they can see even discrimination, right? You can see spreading of the dye considered, passing through the pyrovascular space. So in human cell, many of you must work on those directions, right? So the so-called pyrovascular space have a different names, right? Maybe my pronunciation is not perfect, right? So Victor Robin, space. So it's relatively larger, right? There has a long history started out. But in animals, right, it's extremely challenging, right? As what you can see, right? We have a limited of resolutions, right? We're talking about 2 micron, which is very hard. And the majority of people has been, there are some studies, right? They are ex-vivo imaging. I think these are 40 microns of topic for overnight imaging. They, because there's the profusion of blood injecting gas into the ventricles, they claiming some of the you see their treatment areas is maybe the pyrovascular space there. That's some studies, as what we see is looks like meaningful and interesting. But now, how can we start in vivo, right? So I'm going to show you some of the non-published results, and I definitely want to hear your feedbacks. Okay, so excuse me. I want to just give a little bit overview, maybe the motivation why Alice joined my lab. So remember I showed you the single vessel eligible compass. That's pretty much what she really interested, right? So she has some early studies. I'm not going to talk about it because of time. However, when she joined the lab, her first job is she really want to apply the so-called single vessel imaging with the so-called, the dynamic contrast enhancement, right? Inject gas into the receiving the gas that got really into the ventricles, and you can see it's very strong. Using this so-called MG sequence, right? So now we can get a 50 micron implant, 150 micron sequence. 12 seconds TR for each cell of imaging there. You can see how the imaging is increased as a function of time and dropping it, right? Not in the vessels, right? Just give you ideas, we are able to achieve super high resolution. But is this sufficient to cut pyrovascular space? It's definitely a question mark. That's why it takes too long for us to validate it. There, I'm sorry, I'm just okay. So anyway, I'm going to show you a list of the efforts, how we can really identify the pyrovascular space. Okay, the first effort with Alice is, she not just, inject the gas into ventricles, she also inject iron into the blood. As many of you know, iron into the blood is CVV, right? Because the now signals from the blood called the phosphorylated of the super parallel stacks, right? So you can actually, what she says, typical flow, this is considered an MRI, right? You can see the beautiful vessels. This is the branch, this is the middle line, okay? The branches of the anterior cerebral artery. And, when, she has injected iron particles, all of the arteries become dark. However, when there's a gap there, right, in the ventricles, you can see there is a very clear, signal enhancement near these areas. From the overlap of the 2 meters, means this is the best one. You can clearly identify the gap enhanced signals near the, branches of the big arteries. This is already like maybe 1 millimeter depth, and very hard to Not only that, this is the most convincing observation from IUD when she showed. You can see that, right, when she injected this one. Oh, by the way, this is a 30 micron isotopic imaging resolution. Okay, so according 90 minutes in vivo. Remember, I told you that before. Previous in other group, right, they can achieve a 40 micron isotopic ex vivo overnight. So now, by the RF, by whatever ways we can improve, we are achieving the 30 micron isotopic vivo resolution in 90 minutes. Sorry, I should emphasize that first. So what she did is, she injected gas there, immediately she acquired images, right? Oh, the gas is, sorry for constant dosage, but it's like, it takes like 2 microliter for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? It's almost like 100 nanoliter per minute, right? Very slowly perfuse it into the ventricles, and meanwhile, she acquires the very high resolution images. So, and before that, she have an iron particle injected. What I'm going to share with you, you see, this is the darker the penetrating vessels, right? And now you are able to very nicely see near these penetrating vessels, there's a very strong brighter enhancement that is considered as, I'm sorry, how long have I spent your time? Maybe I should have quickly stop it. Anyway, okay, so make it fast, right? So what we are really showing this is, but we all make sure this is not just an issue of the dietary facts, the field distortion facts, right? So we are then same animals, we can see this beautifully, and this paravascular space, and you can see afterwards it disappeared. However, iron still there, right? It's not caused by iron. I'm sorry, right? I really need to. Okay, I'll jump a bit. I'm sorry about that. That's I need to really give a Chunqi sufficient time, because I think that's very, very exciting. I'll quickly show you a little bit what we do with a weak mouse. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm only need like 5 minutes of finish everything now. So this is just a setup, right? It's a weak mouse. Sorry, I don't know why, but anyway, so we have the weak mouse setup, right? And anyway, allow me to jump something. We talk about stress, we deal with the training, there's so many things we did it, sorry for that. Okay, we get it, right? So this is a beautiful, visual enhancement. You see, this is LGN, so we have this superior corticulus, we have visual cortex, we do the air path, we see the viral cortex, we see the EEG. We also even see more than that, right? So sorry, I don't have enough time, right? Okay, so this is a very crucial slides I want to show you. You see this? So remember something. This is 120 micron isotopic EPI, right? We actually use the anatomical data. Typically, we get now every 2 seconds we get this resolution. And I'm sure you 20 years ago, when I was a PhD student, right? Using 7P, right? At NYU, it took me 2 hours to get a 3D 100 micron isotopic. And now, after 20 years, it took us 2 seconds, weak mouse. Okay, so that's important because you truly want to see some really meaningful. Allow me, to just, first thing is how can we get it? We need to deal with design the RF coils, and there are a lot of things that allow me to. Sorry for that. So, and what I want to really say here is why we want to push it, because such a small mouse brain, consider the vascular origin perspective, you need to really focusing on the high resolution to achieving some kind of meaningful spatial acquisition of the function maps. Otherwise, it's very smear. You can never see detailed information. So this is some studies done by Xiaochen, and this is we talk about Alzheimer's versus wild type. So the real thing here is very exciting. Is what she observed is by comparing. I'm not doing details, right? The pupil-driven features. She is observing the difference between wild type and AD mice located at the medial septal areas. And even projected hippocampus, all the through the cortex, as many of you know, this is cholinergic projections, and many of you know the cognitive decline from the AD mice is really coming from this side. So with this really high resolution, combining with the pupil, we are able to start that. We even doing the acetylcholine, mapping. This is acetylcholine-based, correlation mapping because this is even can tracing back to the medial septal areas, and many of you know that's the areas sending the cholinergic projections there. So I think I think I should stop here, and sorry, I overestimated. So the thing there. Let me end it in a way, right? So I want to go back to about vascular perspective. So everything related is in rodent brain, right? The take-home message, even though I'm sorry, I kind of cut off a lot of talk and detailed perspectives. I really want to share with you is we have to be very careful when we reinterpret fMRI signals, right? So this is some studies I did, in Germany with the non-conformal test standard, right? So the nuclear resolution is, I remember it's 500 micron, and thickness is 800 micron, right? So, this resonance fMRI, fun part is you are able to see there the penetrating into cortical vessels there, right? When you see the basic correlation, you are able to see, how the correlation appears. They appears other penetrating vessels too. So the take-home message is the resolution matters. Right? fMRI talk about the hemodynamic response from the vessels. So we have to keep it in mind, and then how can we compile this information with the typical functional connectivity, typical region-specific functional correlation features, right? And hopefully from there, we are able to produce more insight information to push our understanding of the brain and even translate for preclinical applications. So this is my team. Many of them left us already, right? They go to medical school and go to PhD programs. Some younger ones just go to undergrad. I still have a few left here, right? We have a few also postdocs, and some of them just get promoted. And I can mention what Alice here. All right, sorry, I really push it, right? But I want to spend at least 20 seconds to introduce the context. Everything what I talk about is kind of tell you, hey, it's a vessel, it's hemodynamics. But fMRI has a reason why I call fMRI is functional, because this neurovascular coupling, right? There is a neural part which is really crucial. And I still don't think in the human side there's any better way fMRI can give us inside information about the global, the dynamic features. Even though I know we have the MEG, people here, right? But in terms of sensitivity, in terms of global features, in terms of temporal dynamics, combining them, even take advantage of the vascular dynamics, this is very, very golden, because there's a lot of vascular related in this data, including the AD. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce my long-term colleague Chunqi, who is showing this very novel development of combining the EEG and fMRI, and really the smart way to really pushing I think the next generation, acquisition perspectives. Okay, and Chunqi, the floor is yours. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I was a long-term colleague of Xin ever since 2009. And when I first listened to Xin's lecture, I'm quite amazed. And I can only remember the first and last lecture slides. But even the first and last is sufficient for me to understand what is CBF and CBV and I'm sure most of you do MRI here. And Xin also mentioned about hemodynamics. But when I talk to neuroscientists about the MRI, a lot of them don't believe. The real underlying reason is because, as she mentioned, MRI signal is slow. So, I mean, there's a complicated combination of CBF and CBV and blood oxygenation. But overall effect is that both of fMRI is most affected by CBF. Correct me if I am wrong. So, but anyway, so whatever neuronal activation, so MRI signal will take at least 4 or 5 seconds to respond. So this is a little bit slow. And then if we do the common fMRI, I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. So if you stimulate a rodent on its forepaw, then we get this kind of beautiful pattern. But the common question for us is, at what time point exactly does the neuron start to respond? So this requires us to do either optical photometry or electrophysiology. Optical photometry is very good for rodent models, but for translational value in the future, electrophysiology and MEG might be the only way. But how can we do MEG and MRI together? I don't know. We can talk more. But at least we are trying to propose how to do EEG and MRI together. I'm sure there are many people here in this prestigious institute are doing EEG and MRI together. And I'm amazed to see its most recent development this morning. And then there are commercial vendors who are selling this expensive box and who are selling these long cables. The cable has to be channeled out of the scanner room in order for its expensive box not to interfere with the MR scanner. And then there are more expensive options, like they make the box MR compatible so that they can put the same box into the scanner, but they still need a half-meter long cable between the EEG headset and the box. So this half-long meter cable is susceptible to motion. I'm sure there are clever ways to do that. But most of the commercially available cables, they have this kind of interference. So whenever you turn on the gradient, the EEG signal is screwed up. Of course, you can do post-processing. But anyway, this box is expensive, especially for the MR compatible version, which costs more than 400K. And most importantly, this kind of box is not compatible, is not, wearable, it's not mobile. So we want to build a device that a patient can wear every day in real day routine life. And then we can continuously monitor the patient's electrophysiology behavior during, for example, during sleep, during when he's sitting beside the chair. And whenever patient has some abnormalities in the EEG, we can bring the patient back to the Martinos Center and scan them to get detailed information about which part of the brain correlate with the abnormal EEG signals. So that's our dream. We are not there yet, but I will show our first development. So I have a very close colleague of us, both Xin and I, a long time ago. When he was an assistant professor in Purdue University, he developed this kind of sensor. Basically, he convert EEG signal that is below kilohertz range into MRI signal that can be into signals in the MR frequency range. That is, in his clinical scanner, 128 megahertz. So basically, he encode EEG signal, digitally encode it and convert it and then transmit it out through RF transmitter. And you see this kind of complicated circuits is very difficult to build. And he had an SBIR company to build it. But after students graduate, nobody do it again. And he, because it's too complicated, and he abandoned it anyway. And then he moved to Ann Arbor and had a very successful career over there. But anyway, so I think the fundamental limitation of his technique is, this is first of all, a brilliant technique. But one limitation is that whenever the gradient switch, the gradient will saturate ADC, analog to digital converter, and then he had to stop the acquisition. So as a result, he intrinsically have many gaps in a single EPI scanner. But what we want to build is something simple, something easy to build, and then something that can be fabricated hopefully by an undergraduate, and then something that can be practical. But the simple circuit doesn't have a simple, principle, because even though this simple circuit is just a loop, and it has two nonlinear capacitors, which we call the varactors, but this simple circuit can do amazing things. It can be utilized as a wireless powered amplifier without internal batteries, and it can be utilized as a wireless powered oscillator that can send frequency modulated signal like a tiny radio frequency station. And then here is how it works. And then it also can encode electrophysiology signals, which I will show in a few slides later. So basically, this circuit is very simple. It has two resonance modes. I'm sure many of you are building coils here. So this is a very simple coil, just a loop gap inductor, and that forms the circular mode. That's the first mode. The circular mode resonant at about 370 megahertz. And then if we add another inductor to connect the virtual ground of the first circular mode, we create a second resonance mode. That's called a butterfly mode. This is also familiar to many of you. So basically, we can build a quadrature coil out of this structure. But what's amazing is that if we substitute a normal capacitor with a nonlinear capacitor, it's called a varactor. And then if we power up the device at some frequency, at a circular mode and a butterfly mode, which is 670 megahertz here. And then the two modes will exchange energy, and the external power will convert part of its power into energy to sustain spontaneous oscillation of each mode. Because of the power exchange between these two modes, the externally powered oscillation can sustain. And then if the externally provided power can compensate for the internal circuit loss, and then the spontaneous oscillation can last forever. This is called wireless powered oscillation. And then if we characterize the device by a simple network analyzer, we can observe the following. Without any external power, we get a pretty broad line shape. That's the intrinsic Q quality factor, which is about 50. It's not good, not bad. But if we increase the externally provided power, the device will first have a frequency shift. And then second, the line widths will become narrow and narrower. So this figure tells us two things. One thing is that we can wirelessly tune the device, even though its intrinsic frequency is slightly off, a few megahertz away from normal frequency, we can bring it back to normal frequency. The second is we can wirelessly tune its power to tune its magnification amplitude. And then if we increase the external pumping power, we can make the device oscillating at an increasingly pure frequency until it self-oscillates at a single frequency. So this figure tells us how the device responds to the external pumping power. So if we plot external pumping power with respect to bandwidth, the larger the pumping power, the narrower the bandwidth. I will skip this part until it becomes narrow enough to become a pure oscillator. Okay, and then this is the initial work I did with Xin maybe 12 years ago. We demonstrate that first, a device can operate as a wireless powered amplifier. So similar as what Xin showed you on brain, high resolution vascular imaging, we did it on kidney. And then we were the first group to observe kidney glomeruli in vivo. So this is the case. We utilize the device, utilize its wirelessly powered amplifier mode. And then we can also operate the device as a wirelessly powered oscillator. So you can look at the circuit. So the orange part is what I have shown, the two circular mode and butterfly mode. And then if we overlay the device with another device, is what we call the voltage sensing resonator. So voltage sensing resonator is basically whatever voltages, tiny voltages like neuronal voltages you applied across the nonlinear capacitor, you will shift the resonance frequency of the voltage sensing resonator. And then by overlapping the voltage sensing resonator with the wirelessly powered oscillator, we can use the voltage sensing resonator to tune the oscillation frequency. So this is the simple demonstration. If we apply 1 milliwatts, electric signal across the pair of electrodes, we get about 5.5 kilohertz oscillation frequency shift. And then we can also remember that if we let if we intentionally set the oscillation frequency to about 100 kilohertz away from the normal frequency, and then the normal frequency will show up as oscillation sidebands. So what I'm called oscillation sidebands is that MRI signal is much weaker compared to the strong oscillation signal, but instead it will be encoded, it will be frequency encoded as sidebands on top of the carrier frequency. So that's why I call it sidebands. So this kind of pattern is very, so this kind of pattern is very characteristic of the frequency modulation pattern. Okay, I think I will use this. Okay, so everybody can see it. Okay, and then, so in normal EPI, we do gradient encoding, gradient switching, and then we get this kind of, repeated echoes. That's called a EPI echo. But in our experiment, once we turn on the pumping power, we get this kind of signal. So the signal amplitude remains constant, but the information, important information, is encoded into the phase of the signal. And then if we do a direct Fourier transformation of the constant amplitude signal, we see this. So we can see a carrier frequency. That's the oscillation signal. And then we can also see MRIs. That's the sidebands. And then we can see another sidebands that's encoded into a different frequency separation from an MRI signal. That's the EEG. And then this kind of spectrum doesn't tell us, doesn't give us image. In order to get the image, we can do this. We can frequency demodulate the signal by derivatizing the phase of the oscillation signal. And then we apply low pass filter to get EEG signal. And then we can apply high pass filter to get MRI signal. Okay, so that's the basic concept. And then we do some simple experiments in a rodent model. And then, so in this rodent model, we use optogenetic stimulation because it enables us to get better control. To confirm the sensing electrode was recording EEG signals, we first acquired the detector's oscillation signal in the absence of encoding gradient. And then when we apply 2 Hz stimulation pulses, EEG spikes were clearly observed for low power light at 0.4 milliwatts. And in a control experiment, we reduce the light power to, we reduce light power to almost 0 and observe disappeared pattern. And in another control experiment, we do the same experiment in another rat without AAV, without optogenetic virus, and we again observe nothing. That's again, so this kind of control experiments confirm that what we observe is real EEG signal instead of artifacts. And then if we do a power-dependent intensity, power-dependent plot, and then we can find that a larger amount of power will lead to higher EEG intensity, but it will also lead to longer response time. It's the longer response time. Okay, and then in another experiment, so in this experiment, we can turn on the gradient and then we can do EEG and fMRI together. And then we apply 5 Hz optogenetic stimulation pulses for a duration of 4 seconds within a 15-second stimulation epoch. And then by low pass filtering, we get an EEG signal. And by high pass filtering, we get a MRI signal pattern. And then this signal pattern is most obvious in the F1 SP region, which corresponds to the stimulation region of the optogenetic. And then as shown in the activation map, MRI signals in the S1FP region have the largest intensity modulation. And this correlated modulation pattern is reproducible for multiple experiments. When we increase the laser power by a factor of 2.3, we get larger bold intensity. And then we plot the EEG intensity and the bold intensity. And then we found the approximate linear relation. So that means the higher EEG intensity corresponds to larger bold intensity. So that demonstrates the existence of neurovascular coupling. That is the foundation of the fMRI experiments.